In this episode of the Tech John, we discussed the FCC versus Meta trial kicking off today. Gail King and them going to space. 2 Yale juniors getting $3.1 million in pre-seed funding for their AI startup. And Spotify is saying that you must prove AI can't do the job before you hire anybody. Got all this and more for you, and a special guest today in this episode of the Tech John. From Columbus, Ohio, I'm your host, Robb Dunewood.
From the edge of Atlanta, I'm Nika Montfort.
And out of Atlanta, this is Terrance Gaines, a.k.a. Brother Tech, a.k.a. whoever came up with the idea of yard work. You need to be fired. Did a lot of yard work over the weekend, and my bones are still tired. So I don't know if I'm getting old. I don't know if my yard is getting harder to work on. But this yard work stuff is for the birds.
Yeah, it's... I try not to do it anymore. I mean, I just try to pay folks to do it if I can. I don't want to say I'm lazy. I guess I am. I just don't feel like doing it. So I pay folks to come and cut. I will like edge and leaf blow and stuff like that, but I have somebody coming to cut every week.
Nope, I do it all. I can do this bad by myself. So
what about you, Nika? Do you have to take care of lawn care or?
I do not. Fortunately, even though I hate my HOA, they do take care of all lawn maintenance. So that's the only positive that I have for them.
I won't even give them that. So because you paid for it, it's like I won't give them that. So they just doing what you're paying them to do.
Right.
I think everybody hates HOAs. I don't know anybody who likes them except for the folks who run them.
I don't know why people don't like HOAs, because the opposite is somebody's going to put a junkyard in your across the street, or a chicken coop, or an old used car lot. And then y'all going to be mad. I'm like, this is what HOAs do. They stop the yahoos from getting in your neighborhood. Now, some of them can be reckless. Some of them can be overzealous. But I will take a HOA as opposed to not, because you never know who will move in next door.
So my neighborhood is relatively small. It's like one big cul-de-sac, one way in, one way out. And the president of our HOA, he is retired. It's almost as if he's been retired since I bought the house, because he stands outside of his house with his little tumbler, and he just watches and just waits for somebody to do something so he can strike. He walks around the neighborhood just looking for things to like levy fines against people. Like, I got a notice today in my email saying, hey, your mailbox needs to be painted. And I'm like, sure, I can paint it, but I'm going to be painting pollen into the paint, because there's no way I'm going to be able to clean off the mailbox or whatever to be able to paint it without pollen, because I have my neighborhood is full of trees, tree lined all everywhere. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do this. But when you send me another notice saying, hey, your mailbox looks black and with specks of yellow, what do you want me to do? Like,
they literally want you to build a structure that's hermetically sealed around the mailbox before you paint it. But of course, they will then hit you with the strike for building an unsanctioned, structure on your property.
Right, because all the mailboxes have to be uniform, down to the paint. They give you the paint color for the letters, the paint color for the box, the paint color for the flag. Yeah.
I'm with it. My I don't want to call it OCD, because that's disrespectful to people who have OCD, but the way my anal retentive is set up, everything needs to be the same. Everything needs to be coordinated. Everything has to be no circles, all flat corners, all edges. None of that funky stuff.
They annoy me to no end. So I keep a stock of the paint, and like, because you don't really need that much, like me and a couple of my neighbors, we just share it, because eventually we'll know that it's going to be our turn. And who needs to go and buy 3 different types of paint that you use very, very little of at any given moment. So It's just annoying.
Yeah, they're annoying. But you know what? This is a tech show. So let's go ahead and get into some of the tech stories of the week. And it seems like the biggest thing that is going on right now might be this FTC versus Meta. I guess it is technically a antitrust case. It's the FCC is suing Meta. The trial starts today. They expect it to go for a couple of months, actually. The commission accused Meta. And when they accused them, they were then Facebook of buying Instagram and WhatsApp to ensure a dominant position in the social messaging space. So you have to ask the question, what would make the FTC think that Meta actually bought these companies for that? Well, maybe because Zuckerberg and other CE or other OOs in there, other executives in the organization were sending emails back and forth where they were discussing the very thing. Hey, if we get this, it might actually help us corner the market. I literally kid you not. They literally were discussing stuff that is very anti-competitive in email. Like that would never get sequestered. It would never be brought into evidence and then used against them. So
it's like Cubish, right? Like they don't think they'll ever be held accountable for any of these things because they're Facebook. He's Mark Zuckerberg. There's no way that anybody's going to, say anything to them. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of, I don't know if you guys were surprised, but I was to see the number of tech people when, we were going through the whole, inauguration stuff that were kind of like front and center. And you can't tell me, I guess you can, but I wouldn't believe it, that they didn't think that some of this stuff would maybe roll off of them or maybe, not have as big an impact if they kind of showed up and kind of schmoozed this administration. So.
Well, apparently it ain't working because they going to court.
Yeah, that's surprising.
On these tariffs and this antitrust, I don't know if these tech bros got what they paid for when they backed or showed support for this administration. But antitrust, I don't know if Meta buying Instagram and WhatsApp and MetaQuest or whatever else. I don't know if it's suspect. Clearly what they're trying to do is get as much market share as possible. But I don't know if it rises to the level, of course, my little knowledge of law, so take that for what it is. I don't know if that's going to rise to the level of antitrust because, in my opinion, if I can't get your product or what you're offering anyplace else, then this got to be broken up. But if I can if there's Instagram and there's also X and there's also Snap and there's also TikTok and there's also all these other ones, I can choose which one to go to. So therefore they can create be competitive, but that's what America is. America is competitiveness and it's free market. As long as one company doesn't control everything. Now, if Meta controlled social media and I didn't have no choice, I either go on social media or go to RSS news feeds. Now we got antitrust, right? Because I can't go nowhere. Now, again, I could be completely wrong because I don't have that much law background. But again, this same thing with Apple versus Apple antitrust. You can go get an Android, right? It ain't like Apple has cornered the market on smartphones. They've cornered the market on iPhones. Same thing with apps. Yes, in order to get an iPhone, you have to download Apple's apps or go get you an Android, right? So this kind of like same thing I'm coming with now. Again, don't get me wrong. I'm not siding with Meta. Some of their practices, them buying Instagram was slowly because the other companies was kicking their ass in social media. So like, we need to get the young kids. Let's go buy Instagram, but that's America, baby.
I'm with you on this one, Terrance, because although the optics of this look very, very bad, I don't believe that you literally had a bunch of executives sitting around saying, you know what, let's corner the market on messaging by buying WhatsApp when they already had Facebook Messenger that at the time was bigger than WhatsApp at the time when they started having these conversations about buying it. So that's one thing. The other thing is that I think one of the reasons they bought Instagram was because they didn't have anything that was good as Instagram. They knew that the young folks was not feeling Facebook. It's like, okay, what do? We don't have anything that we've come out with that is anything close to this. What if we just offer them a couple $1 billion to see? You're not saying a couple, is more than that, but let's see if we could just offer them some money. And they just become us. And now that's our play. Instead of having to fight Instagram, we've just bought them up because there are other places. Twitter at the time was kicking Facebook's behind as far as being where news was breaking. And, and then TikTok came on the scene, a few years later, but Snap was there. There were other things that were there. So I really think two things that, have happened. They bought these other companies. They bought these other platforms because they didn't have that technology, and it was just easier to buy them than to try to spend the time to compete with them. Because you're talking about companies that have darn near infinite amounts of money. If they needed to, they don't want to sell to us. Like Snap wouldn't sell to them, so they basically, okay, we just got to we got to go buy this stuff. We got to build this stuff. We got to do what we got to do. Probably not the greatest decision for Snap. But when it comes to WhatsApp in the United States is not even that big of an app. I would dare venture to say that most Americans have no idea what WhatsApp is because they don't use it. It's just not something that they use every day. Over here, it is SMS or now RCS and iMessage. Those are the things that everybody uses because that's what everybody has always used. So when if you are running this from a worldwide standpoint, which the U.S. can't do, the FTC only controls what happens here in the United States, then maybe they would have an argument because of just how big WhatsApp is. But when it comes to the United States, WhatsApp's not even that big of an app here.
But the FTC does have a point. And if you read a little bit in the story, it says the FTC says Meta has, however, raised the quote quality adjusted price, end quote. That is the agency's way of saying Meta has used its market power to do things such as putting more ads on screens or not offering strong privacy protections that consumers don't like. Nonetheless, users have no other options for sharing with friends and family, the FTC claims. Now, you've got a point in the sense that Facebook or Meta has used its properties to do what's going to do best for their pockets. That to me is a separate concern outside of, all right, we need to break them all up. The FCC needs to be more targeted. They need to say, all right, Meta, y'all need to do better for privacy. Y'all need to do better for ads or your customer experience. And if you don't, we'll fine you to, hell and back. But to say, all right, we're going to break everything up because we don't like these couple things you're doing. I don't know if that's going to hold water.
Yeah. And not to agree with Meta, but isn't that kind of like the spoils of being the one that has the most money? You get to buy things. It's the same with Google buying competition or buying, different pieces of software they want to integrate into their ecosystem. Isn't that just a part of being, one of the people on top? You get to buy your way into some things. And it would seem more to me to be on the antitrust side if Meta said, you know what? In addition to WhatsApp, we're going to buy Signal. Mm. We're going to buy Telegram. We're going to buy all of the other messenger systems and we're going to fold it all under Meta. Then they would have, to me,
a case,
a leg to stand on. But because there are these other pieces of technology, these other options that people have, it's going to be very hard to say that this is antitrust. And it just sounds like this is, like you said, Terrance, the FTC is saying, you know what, we don't like the way you're doing this one particular thing and we want to change that because we don't like it and you're making too much money, you have too much influence, and we don't like that over here.
I would go as far to say that I think that Meta would win this case if it were not for the fact that they actually have emails where they admit, it's not even admit, they're saying, you know what, if we do this, we could really stomp out the competition. They literally are saying the thing that the FTC is coming after them for in emails, as though they were having these evil genius type conversations. And it's like, hey, that's just dumb. Why would you say that in an email? That's just not a smart thing to do.
Well, it's not what, It's not what you. It's what you can prove, right? I mean, they saying it, but show me where they actually have
Mhm.
done it, right? I mean, what competition have they crushed out? Twitter's still here, X is still here, Snap is still here again. I ain't on Snap. I'm assuming the kiddies are, so that's their thing. So I ain't gonna say they out of here because I don't know what I don't know if they exist. I'm assuming they exist. So, Instagram's still here. TikTok is a new up and comer. And then there's a couple other social media, Blue Sky,
Yeah,
all the other federated
there's a
things.
lot of other
It's like
stuff.
ain't no competition went
There's a lot of
nowhere.
other stuff. It's like, in fact, there's more competition now, it seems like, than there was when they made these.
It's too many.
Yeah.
It's too many options. I'm tired of all the social media. Let's chill on it. But
And although WhatsApp is the biggest messaging platform in the world, this is a US case. As we said earlier, it's not big here. And then when it comes to Instagram, they're not number one. Facebook is still the number one social media platform. That is also them, but they're not number one. They don't have the most traffic. That would be that would be, I believe, TikTok. They don't have the most reach. That would be Google and YouTube. So it's like they're not even number one. They're not stomping out the other companies. They're just playing the same game that the other companies are playing. And in the case of Instagram, not as good. So if I had to guess, here's what's going to happen. This is ultimately going to be settled. At some point, the FTC is going to back up a dump truck back up a dump truck to the headquarters over there at Facebook, and they're going to fill it up with gold bullion and drive away, and no harm, no foul. Facebook will admit nothing. The FTC will say that they did all these things, but they're not. They're not going to actually break the company. But I cannot imagine for a second that they would break this company.
I don't even think they're going to settle. I think the case is going to get thrown out. They're going to fight it. The case is going to get thrown out. And they have to pay the lawyers. The lawyers are going to get paid. Outside of that, I don't think money's going to change hands between, the what do you call them? The people with two sides in a court case, the plaintiff and the defendant. I don't think no money's going to change hands.
And I was looking through the article to see when this lawsuit was brought, because, it takes a really long time for something like this to finally get to court. And I don't see it. And, I would, guess that maybe this has to do with the first election of the current president. And the way, the election was stolen, it was rigged, and they had all these things. I don't know if this is kind of like some leftoverness of this guy trying to, stick it to Mark Zuckerberg because of what happened with the 2020 election.
It even goes back before that. This goes back to the Obama administration when they actually initially brought this. So this goes way back. They've been going over this stuff for a long time. And the fact that it's taking so long.
Yeah, I know it normally takes a long time to get there. So I was like, when was this, even started?
It's been a minute. And the other part of this is that I think that Facebook's going to say, if we can just make this go away for a few $100 million, let's just do that. It'll keep the administration happy. I don't want to say like several $100 million is not insignificant money, because it is. But when you're talking about one of the biggest companies on the planet, it's not that much money.
It is insignificant money.
So it's like, for them, could they fight? I think they would rather, let's just settle this. Give the administration their win. We don't admit to anything, but give them their win, their transactional. They get the money, and let's just let this go away. I think if I were betting, that's what I think the outcome.
Or if it's a more quid pro quo coming down the line. So if they do give them money, maybe this administration eases the tariffs on them, or gives them some easy gives them the money back in a way that may not be direct, money hand over, but an equivalent to something, tariffs, or making it easier for them to build a data center somewhere, or, something like that, to be, what's a little
I'm with Terrance on this one, because that quid ain't pro coin right now. It's like they lost $6 trillion. that is $6 trillion. $6 trillion is gone. It's just wiped out. We're just gone, wiped from existence for playing the game. So I don't know if that was a good play or not. So y'all, this next one's just a little quick one here. I got up this morning. I'm looking at the news. I was like, oh, Gail King is going to space. So it was Gail King and them. It was Gail King and Lauren Sanchez, Carrie Ann Flynn, Amanda Nugent, Katy Perry, and Aisha Bowe. I believe it is like the first all female flight in decades. So it's been a minute for that. But yeah, my question for you guys, because I think over time we're going to see these things significantly decrease in price, like 10, 15 years from now. Could you ever see yourself buying a ticket to just go visit space?
No.
So I won't say no, but I will say what they did to me was not going to space. They skimmed space, or they just got to the tip of space. The whole thing took
it was 3 minutes? Like 12, 15-minute flight or something like that. Yeah.
So my thing is, if I'm going to risk my life, because let's be clear, this is a life risking type of thing, even when it happens, with the real professionals. When I say real professionals, I mean NASA, with them doing it. They've, had issues and explosions and, all these types of things. If I'm going to take this rocket and go to space, I want to actually go to space. I don't just want to skim it. I don't want to risk my life for 3 minutes just to skim it and not even be able to see anything. You're basically doing all this training, the G-forces and all of this stuff, the shaking and all this stuff, the facing, mortality, to go up and then to come back down. To me, this isn't worth it. And to me, it just seems like a vanity project or stunt for really rich people who have so much money that, hey, what's going on down here doesn't really do it for me anymore. So I'm gonna try something a little bit else, or just to be able to say, technically you went to space, but did you really go to space? So I would say, if I could go up there and maybe hang out for a day or two, then yeah, I'd be down with that, because I've always wanted to go to space. I'm a nerd like that. I'd go. If I had to do my education over again, I would pivot to aerospace engineering, and I go and work for NASA and try to become an astronaut to go to space. If I had to do it all over again, because I think that's really cool. But what they did, nah.
When I was a kid, I was really, really, really into space, into NASA and the space exploration and the flying spaceships. I actually went to space camp when I was a kid. And the problem for me is that I just kept getting taller and bigger. And I actually had somebody tell me, it's like, they don't have 6'5" defensive tackles flying in space too much. It's really expensive to try to send your big behind up there. So that kind of, it's like, I am significantly larger than the fighter pilots that often end up being astronauts or becoming astronauts. And so by the time that I was, getting ready to go to college, it's like, okay, I'm not going to get on a spaceship, so let's go play football. Let's get real big. So there was that. But I do still have in the back of my mind, if I could just sometime in my life go to space and actually say, hey, I've been to space. I don't know. That's because I think what's going to happen is that 5 years from now, we'll see more and more people doing this. You'll probably start seeing flights within the next 10 years. These things are taking off once or twice a week. And maybe in the next 20 years, it's just a tourism thing. Like there's a bunch of companies that do it, and you literally, it's kind of like if you want to go do skydiving or something like that. It's you take a day and you go to space. And I'm thinking, it's like, I don't know if I get to where I'm in my my 60s or 70s, and it's you don't have to mortgage a house to do it. I might actually try it, just because it has been my dream from a kid to actually explore space. But I am with you, Nika. This ain't really space flight. This is you are basically going and touching it and then you coming right back. There is no unbuckling in the space capsule and floating around and encircling the Earth multiple times and then coming back in. It's not that. So I would hope that maybe we get to that.
This might as well be a roller coaster ride at Space Mountain.
Yeah, you can.
Just
you got to be
higher.
100 millionaire or Oprah's best friend, and also a anchor on one of the big three networks that might actually help you get there, or a Katy Perry, or everyone who went was Jeff Bezos's fiance, or they were not regular. These are not folks who just regularly walk down the street without you recognizing who they are.
Yeah, I think the Aisha Bowe, I think she worked for NASA. I think she is in aerospace. So I think, that was her, I guess, view of it. She worked for NASA, but I don't believe she was an actual astronaut that got to go to space, obviously, because she ended up doing this. But I think that's her area of expertise. That's where her work lies. And kind of like how you just said, you went to space camp and, it's your dream to go up there. This probably was hers as well. And this was, her chance to live that kind of lifelong dream. So, I mean, good for them, I guess, but
yeah. And I do think that if they keep doing this, it is a privately done thing at this point. It's going to be like, right. I don't think any of the three of us think about getting on airplanes anymore. But there was a time when it was like, so what you want me to do? You want me to strap my behind to these big old wings and you want me to fly like a bird? I mean, there was that thought, I'm certain, 100 years ago, a little longer than 100 years ago, back when the Wright brothers were at Kitty Hawk. But this is, like I said, it's cool in the sense that they went high enough that they touched space. That is cool to me.
They technically went to space.
I love that for y'all.
So yeah, this one is a really interesting one. We have two black Yale juniors. These two bros raised $3.1 million in a pre-seed round to fund their AI social media network. They're going to use AI to actually make matches with people. But the really cool thing here was that they did this in just 14 days. It took them 2 weeks to raise $3.1 million. So I'm assuming they must have a heck of an idea. The gentlemen's names are Nathaniel Johnson and Sean Hargrove. And as I said, they're both juniors at Yale. And this was a pre-seed fund for this AI startup that they are in the process of creating.
About time. I am so glad to finally see, black folks getting some of this VC money, and more than just a couple thousand there, 15,000 here, 20,000 there. They're actually getting a nice series round, and I have to say, it doesn't hurt that they are both at Yale, one of the Ivies, and this gives them access to, people who have that kind of capital. So yes, proud of them. Let's get more of this, because there are plenty of people out there who look like us, who have these ideas, who have the know-how, the acumen to get it done. And, one of the biggest barriers is getting it funded. And for this pre-seed round, this is a very nice start in a very short amount of time.
My only concern is if they don't nail it, that's going to further put black-led firms farther in the back seat or in the back of the bus if it don't work. Our counterparts can launch companies, embezzle the money, create vaporware, embezzle money from the fund, and they can get to go start something else new. Nobody really bats an eye, or the next thing up is what gets funded, right? I'm hoping that these brothers nail it, and that makes it easier or more plausible for the people behind them who look like them to also raise money. The negative, again, of that is if this flops or just fizzles, or they do something illegal or typical of people who get a bunch of money at a short period of time, that greed jumps in and something happens, that's going to cast a cloud over Black funded projects for years to come. And I'm just hoping that won't be the case, but wouldn't be surprised if it
I hear what you're saying on that. Here's my thought to this. It can't get any cloudier than it already is. It's like Black.
Do you know people? Do you know people?
It's like, what do Black folks get? Is it over 1%? It's definitely not 2%. Is it over 1%?
No, it's not even. It's not even a full percent.
So it's like, I don't know that they could do anything that's going to. Okay, you know what? See, this is what happens. We tested out on 2 young folks because we thought they had a good idea and their idea was trash. So that 0.72% y'all was getting, you ain't even getting that anymore. Okay, how does that affect the 99% of folks who weren't getting it anyway?
I'm not a math major, but isn't there such thing as negative integers?
Yeah,
we can get negative money.
Yeah.
So I did a quick little search. In 2024, Black founder startups received just 0.048% of total U.S. venture capital funding.
That's sad.
Not even a full 0.5%.
So that to me tells me if they was able to get $3.1 million in 2 weeks, it was, one of the bros created a video that went absolutely viral on LinkedIn within the college entrepreneur, college startup type of area of LinkedIn. And that's why you've got these companies that are coming in and wanting to invest with them. So I believe that the biggest investor was Parable, the venture firm that was led by A16Z investor and Lee Skates. And there was also some involvement by Pear VC and DGB.VC, 47th Street. So there's a bunch of different companies that got involved in this. They only put their money where they think they're going to make money. And if they did it this quick with 2 weeks, because we've heard the stories of the folks who do get the funding, how long and just how rigorous the process is to go through to get it. These bros got this in 2 weeks. So how good is that?
With the concept.
There's no software yet. It's like, we think that this is how this will work if you give us the money to go and hire people and build it out. So the fact that
this is groundbreaking for Black folks. It really is.
The fact that they got this much this quickly tells me that the idea must be banging. It must be an absolutely brilliant idea. And I mean, there's not a lot of information on it, but as I said, it looks like this is a social network, and the social network is going to use AI to match the right type of people together so that they can ultimately get work done and do what they need to do.
Good luck to them.
Very much so.
So, y'all, the last thing that we're going to talk about today, and this probably will spin off into a couple of different conversations, but the CEO of Shopify has told the company that before y'all try to hire anybody else, you need to prove that AI cannot do the job. So he's literally saying, no, you don't go make a new hire. You prove that you can't do that job with AI. And if you prove that, then you can go and make the hire. I just want to get you guys' take on that, because I don't think I don't think the AI is going anywhere. I think it is here. It is the biggest thing in computing in the computing space probably since the World Wide Web. And I just want to kind of get you guys' take on, what do you think about a company actually saying, we're not going to hire anybody until you have to exhaust using AI to do the job before you go put a person in the role.
My first thought when I saw this was, this is stupid and short-sighted. But I may be rethinking that. I initially said it was stupid and short-sighted because of the significant amount of work that would have to go into a company's POC. This is for each time you want to hire somebody. So say you're building out a team to do something. Who are you charging? And this is thinking, more from the resource side of this. Who are you charging to do this proof of concept, to say, yes, AI can do this? What level of effort and how much money are you going to be spending to have somebody prove basically a negative when you could just hire the people to do the job in the first place? And when you're hiring these, skilled individuals, they can use AI to streamline it, make it faster, make it more efficient. But to completely say no new headcount, no new hiring people until somebody that's already on staff, you're pulling them from doing something, or you're creating this whole new group, which you said you weren't doing any new hires. So you're taking existing people off of the work that they're already doing, putting them on this to prove a negative. So when you prove that, say if you do this and you say, you know what, we need people to do this, the amount of time that you've wasted to try and prove a negative, you could have already hired the people. You could be halfway done to bringing it to market, whatever this new piece of software or hardware, whatever it is you're making, doing. So to me, stupid and short-sighted. I think, again, for me, it would be more of hire the people to do it. Use AI as a tool. Don't use AI as a standalone feature. Use it as a tool to enhance the work that people are already doing, to make more automations, to make things more efficient, to get them to market faster. But do that using people.
What this is a hot take. I want to believe that this guy is indirectly forcing his users to learn more about AI in general, using the prop that if you want to hire somebody, you need to prove to me that AI can't do the job. If I want to hire somebody bad enough, I'm going to do the work to figure out, to learn AI and to learn it enough to then have a better understanding and how it can apply to this field, this position, this team, whatever the case may be. Now, the end result of that is I now know more about AI, and that's going to help us in the company or whatever the case may be. That's what I want to believe. What I don't want to believe is this dude just thinks AI is just that hot right now that he already believes that any job can be done using AI. I don't want to believe that. What I want to believe is he's Jedi mind tricking his employees into learning more about AI as far as their position is concerned, as far as their team, projects, whatever the case may be, is concerned. That's how I want to look at it.
Here's how I'm looking at it. So I have been in management at big IT companies for most of my career. And I have on multiple occasions been put into, as a hiring manager, or people that I had people who worked for me that were hiring managers. We've been put in situations where we were told, you can't do any external hires. If you're going to fill this role, you need to go find someone else in the company that either already has the skill set and can move into this role as a promotion or a lateral move if it's something that they want to do, or someone who's trainable to put into the position that can move into the role. And there were multiple reasons for that. The ones that I didn't particularly have a problem with was that when it's like, well, if we're going to go out into the field and go hire someone that comes in with the skill set, we've got to teach them the culture. So it's still going to take them 3 to 6 months before they get up and they're running. But if you have someone who's in the organization already, and maybe they're looking for a move to another part of the organization, maybe they already know the culture. Maybe they can learn the skill set in that same 3 to 6 months and will be as effective as the person we would go and hire off the street. And they've been here 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many years. You don't have to worry about learning about them and who they are and what kind of worker they are. You already know that. You already have empirical evidence on here's how this person functions as an employee of the company. So when I looked at this, I kind of went back to that. And I think, Terrance, maybe you're kind of saying some of the same thing here. It's like, if we're going to go out and hire someone and bring them in, before we go do that and ultimately have to spend money on that person, and it's going to, and generally employees are not productive day one. It takes them a minute to get to where they're productive and they're actually they're paying for themselves and making money for the company. If we're going to go through that exercise, let's just exhaust and make sure that the thing that we were bringing in here for cannot be achieved with AI. And Shopify is a company where they are training their workforce at large on how to use AI, how to be more effective with it. So two things are happening at the same time. And I think that addresses what you were saying, Terrance. So.
Yeah, but I don't think his whole aim is to bring a bunch of AI workers in right now, right yet, right? That everybody's learning it, everybody's trying it, everybody's trying to figure out new angles for it. And I think, to your ultimate question, I think AI, as popular, as trendy, as much as everybody talks about it, I still think it's in its ideation phase, to where we're still trying to figure out how this thing is going to affect us overall. People are trying it in everything, in everything. Now, I don't think everything is going to work for now in the ideation phase. Once we get a good handle on it, the energy consumption, the resources it takes to generate it, the waste that it creates, all of these other factors that nobody talks about. We hear a little bit about how much power and energy consumption that it takes, but that's dwindled by, oh, I can make a cute AI face. And we're like, yes, that. Mm-hmm. But nobody ever talks about, how much energy does this consume? There's stories out there about whole towns that are up in arms against these data centers that are not only taking up a lot of space, they are loud.
They're not quiet.
And they are environmentally terrible, the waste and the energy consumption, but nobody really talks about that. I think we need to, before everybody jumps out the window on AI, I think we need to look at it in its totality. And since we're not, that's why I still feel like it's in its ideation phase, but that's not stopping people from, like Shopify, to say, hey, this is something we're going to have to learn about. So let's figure out a creative way, air quotes, creative way to get the employees to learn about AI by saying, hey, you can't hire anybody until you learn enough about AI to find out if AI can in fact do your job. Ain't no guarantee. Ain't no guarantee that they're going to say, oh, you made a good case as to why AI can do this job. So let's do this and let's get AI. I don't think that's the case. I don't know. I'm thinking it's more like hey, you learned a valuable lesson.
So for me, as a person who has done this exact thing for a job and led a team that has done this exact same thing, I say it's short-sighted, because it takes a significant amount of effort to prove that AI can do a job that a person would do. And the other piece of that is, what type of AI are you talking about? People like to use that term, but there are so many different layers. Are you talking about images? Are you talking about generative? Are you talking about language models? Are you talking about creating AI that actually does a full process? So when you look at it from that perspective, when I say that it's short-sighted and stupid, it's because I know the level of effort that you put into something. For example, at my last job, I was tasked with bringing in a new piece of AI that would fit into our existing pipeline. I spent 6 to 8 months just seeing if it was even feasible for it to work. There were pieces of it that would work, and there are pieces of it that would completely break the whole pipeline, block everybody out, couldn't do anything. I had to go in, reset things, and send a note to my whole team of about 15 to 20 software engineers, another maybe 10 to 15 data scientists, to say, hey guys, need you to pause one quick second while I, reset this and spin everything back up. And eventually we got it to work, but I worked on it for 6 to 8 months and we had significant roadblocks, and they were like, you know what? We're going to put a pin in this because we need you actually
to do the
real work to keep us on pace for our objectives for this sprint.
Right.
And then they were like, you know what? Hey, we got this guy over here. He has some time. We're going to put him on it. He spent another 3 to 4 months and he only made incremental progress. Then we both came back together, and in another 3 months, we finally got it working. But even after we finally got it working, we were the only two quote unquote experts on this. And when there was an upgrade or some new piece of code was introduced, because you're always iterating, constantly iterating over anything that has to do that you're trying to get to market, it would sometimes break what was existing there. So then we had to pull off of that, go and troubleshoot, try and figure out what was going on, get that back up and running. Once you get that back up and running, then you go back to your original job. But it's just always this kind of thing that's on the side. And that's just one instance. I had dozens of instances similar, to this. So when I say it's short-sighted, you're pulling people from other things to do this work. And I definitely get the whole, instead of hiring outside people, you already have inside people. That's always, to me, a good idea. But at the same time, you want some fresh perspectives, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I say all that to say, he would need to spin up a completely new organization that just worked on feasibility, or embed the feasibility people into existing teams, into the hiring process and to an existing teams. Because I'm sure with a company like Shopify, you have different verticals of work that are being done, and all of these verticals are going to hire people. So you're going to need someone in team A, team P, team C, team D, all the way throughout, to have somebody to say, you know what, we need to hire a new data scientist. Wait, before we hire them, we need to see if we can get AI to do this. So who are you going to pull to look into this, to say, yes, AI can do this, so we don't need this person, or no, AI can do this, so we need to go and get this person. So that's why I say it's short-sighted, and it will likely take even more work to do this, rather than to say, let's have the existing people that we have, and as they do their work, because as people who, you both know how it is in IT, engineering, tech, whatever you want to call it. The person who's doing the day-to-day work, they're the ones who see, what can be improved, what can be streamlined, what can be made better. And who better than to say, you know what, let me take a sprint or two to see how we can make this better, or to see if AI can do this, rather than just kind of putting out a blanket response that no new people without proof that AI can do it. It just seems like it's a lot of work.
So I was reading some of the comments. And the first comment is, an AI CEO would know better what jobs could be replaced by AI. Shopify CEO, this guy, Toby Lutke, is outsourcing that responsibility, telling his workers to do his job of figuring out if jobs can be replaced by AI. More efficient for one CEO to do this than a bunch of workers to do this. Replace him with AI.
I don't know about Spotify, but we've heard about the CEOs who literally make 200, 300 times what their average employee makes in an organization. So yeah, you might be able to do something with that. But just further on the point you were making, Nika, what do you think this would look like if it were, okay, I see what he's saying, let's figure out a good way to do it? Because here's where I am on this. I think that we are further along with AI than a lot of people think that we are. If I did data processing as a job, my job is to look at this sheet and take this number and put it over here, I would be very concerned about what I do. Because there are models now where you literally can have it look at what a person does and then replicate it. And it can be very, very accurate and very, very fast. So those type of jobs, maybe Spotify has a lot of data processing, who knows, maybe that's where this is coming from. But my question for you is, because it seems like you're probably the one that's closest to it, you've actually gone through this. What would this look like where you would say, okay, I see what you're doing. This actually makes sense for us? Because if going forward, AI is what we're going to do, at some point, you've actually got to look at, well, how can we use AI to do a thing that a human is currently doing? That has to be looked at some point.
Absolutely. So the way I would approach this, if you are saying, first off, I would really get rid of the notion of saying, we're not hiring any people until we can prove AI can do it. I don't think that's the best approach. What I would say, if you have, like, at my last job, we on our one team, we had different areas of expertise within that space. And, one person was, they were the go-to person for this thing, and another person would be a go-to person for that thing. What would make the most sense is to take an existing person that you have already in that team doing that work, who knows the process, who knows what you're creating, who knows what you're trying to drive to market, what that process looks like, and have them be kind of like your center person to say, okay, we have this new thing that we're trying to do, or we have this, if you look at HR, and HR Rec says we need a person to come in and, to be able to count the rainbows we have. You look at what you have in people existing in that team that handles rainbows, have them to say, okay, let me take a look at what we have, what we're doing now. Are there ways to make it easier? I think you would need to leverage, as you were mentioning before, using people from within. That's really the only way that makes sense, because you have to have a person who knows what is going on to be able to make those decisions, or even know where to even begin to say, yes, let's take this approach. And a lot of times the approach that you start out with, you iterate over that thing 5-10 times. And what you started off with is not what you ended up with. And you've gone over it multiple times. So it's one of those things where it's not as simple to say, we're just going to see if AI can do it. Who's going to research what AI? Are you going to use a certain type of agent? You got to look at all the, say if it's something for text, you got to go look at all the different text agents, look at all the different models that they use, compare and contrast. Which one's going to be easier? What's going to work within our ecosystem that we already have? Because a lot of times these companies have outfits that they have these agreements with, say we only use Microsoft products, or we only use Amazon products. And so you have to really drill down. It's really a analytical type of job, because you're going to have to cycle through what you know as far as a knowledge base in the space that you're in, and what you're trying to do at the same time. And you're going to have to go and try and fail. I tried and failed a lot before we actually got to what we were trying to do. And I just don't think it's reasonable the way that I know most, kind of tech teams are aligned. It's not really feasible to say we can't hire anybody else until we get this done, because people are already overworked. We were so overworked. I was like at 45% allocation, at one given time. I was doing multiple things at the same time. So it's one of those things where you're doing your company a disservice, you're doing your employees a disservice, because you're putting more on them. You're expecting them to produce more with less. And nobody wants that. You don't want unhappy engineers like that, because, I would say before they have plenty of other options to go to. Right now, the market's kind of a little sus, but it's one of those things where when you try and make these blanket statements, I doubt the CEO even really talked to anybody else who's actually doing the work when he came up with this. He was like, you know what? This sounds like a good idea. We're not going to hire anybody else until we can figure out if we can do it in AI. Not having any type of frame of reference for the ask that he's actually trying to mandate.
I wonder if we are falling victim to the headline, because maybe if he's the CEO, maybe he is thinking about it that deeply, but that doesn't make a good headline if he has all those words in the, if all those words, because what I'm noticing here, you don't see the entire memo. You see clippets of this paragraph that was in the memo and that paragraph that was in the memo. I would hope that the CEO of Spotify is thinking about all of that. About, okay,
I would hope
if we need to
so.
go hire someone, but and the reason is because our folks, they're running at 145%. They're running hot. Is there any way we can use AI to maybe bring their hotness down to where they're not
but
running hot?
in order to bring their hotness down, the people who are doing the jobs got to do more work to find out if the case. So it's like
If it's feasible or not.
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, I'm telling you, we need more people, so it's not as hard on us. And you turn back and say, hey, do some more work though. I'm like, man,
go do this side project to figure out why I actually need to hire somebody, because that's what it is.
Because I'm telling you, because I'm working 90 hours
I can tell, Nika, that you know databases, because you have said defining or not. That is one of the hardest things to do in math, is to say, let me define this thing that doesn't happen. That's extremely difficult. People have PhDs that think about that kind of stuff daily.
Yeah.
So just generally, are you what is your take, Nika, on AI? Do you see the benefit of it? Are you warm to it? Are you hot on it? Or are you just like, nah, it's too soon? You know, how do you feel about AI?
I mean, that's what I do in my everyday work. So I'm hot on it, for sure. And I definitely see the benefit for it. What I think one of the biggest issue is that people aren't being smart. They aren't being strategic about how they want to implement AI. And everybody's trying to slap AI on everything. AI doesn't need to be on everything. In some instances, it slows things down. Some things are running efficient the way they are. And what's happening is every other month, there's a new thing. Right now, it's agentic AI. That's all everybody's talking about. Agentic framework, agentic library. I mean, it's all agentic. But next month it's going to be something else, or 3 months out it's going to be something else. So it's one of those things where people, it's like a child, their attention span. Ooh, I see something shining over there. I'm going to go play with that. And then by the time they get over there, they're playing with this. There's something else shiny on the other side. And what I see people doing is not being very strategic, and they're just jumping at the newest and the latest and greatest. And they're really missing out on what AI can do. I can tell you from the work I've done, it's one of those things where you think it's one thing, but when you get into it, it's something completely different. And it's one of those things where AI is here. AI isn't going anywhere. Machine learning is here. Machine learning isn't going anywhere. The latest thing, quantum computing, because you got to have something to support all this AI and all this machine learning and all these models and all these, just unimaginable amounts of data that are flowing in and out. You have to be able to see what you need, or at least have some general idea, and not just, chasing waterfalls, not just going after every single thing, but making a conscious effort to do things smart. It's easy to do things quick. It's easy to do things just to jump on the latest and greatest thing, but you're really doing a disservice to yourself by not taking a beat, not getting on the hype as far as what's new, what's coming out, but focus on what is your problem set? What are you trying to solve? What are you trying to do? And then go after those different functions of AI to best suit that.
I'm probably making this up, but I'm pretty certain that I had a bowl of cereal, and on the box it said with 30% more AI on my cereal box the other morning. So I get you on that. It's like AI is everywhere. But that I think that's a good place to cap our conversation. So we're going to go ahead and get ready to close the show out. I do want to let folks know that we have a new patron this week, and I love this name. If this person's name is actually this, thumbs up to you. But Anderson, let me say it again. Anderson the third has become a patron of the Tech Job. Like I said, I have a hard time believing that's a real name. But if it is, it's like, Your parents know what? Anderson the third. 3 times they did it. So that's a lot of Andersons. That's 9 of them jokers in one family. But anyway, if anyone would like to support the show like Anderson the third, you can do so by heading over to thetechjohn.com/Patreon, where you will find one of many tiers, any one of which gets you access to our live stream and after party. The Tech John is a podcast, but it is also a live stream. And then we're going to hang out for about another 20-30 minutes and just talk about whatever comes up. So if you would like to get access to those exclusives as well as support the show so that we can bring tech the way that we bring it to you, again, head over to thetechjohn.com/Patreon. So with that, Nika Monfort, tell folks how they can get at you.
You can find me at Tech Savvy Diva pretty much everywhere on the internet.
Mm-hmm. And you can find me all over the internet at Brother Tech. That's BROTHATEC.
And I am at Robb Dunewood on all the things, and we're at the Tech John on all the things. So come holler at us however you holler. Until we meet again in a week's time. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.